so many film festivals, 90% of them are scams pretty much. We think that in many ways over the last 2 decades, Christians have bailed from Hollywood.
Tell me what you like about something and then tell me what didn't work, because that's truly what's going to make me better.
We founded Fuel the Fire Film Festival last year, and the mission behind it was getting people to create content that wasn't just for the standard commercial clients.
You're going to meet a lot of different people, and some people are going to suck. That doesn't mean that everybody sucks. Don't let 1 or 2 or even 10 bad experiences take you from finding real connections and really awesome community. Real friendships aren't the illusion of like, wow, we got deep really fast and we had a fun time. Real friendships are like, we've been hanging out for a while, you're going through a really bad season, I'm gonna stick around and I'm gonna be here for you even when you kind of suck right now.
What do I actually want to be? What's a life in 5 years I'm living, and I'm excited to live because it's one that's fulfilling, like more than just my passion, but my overall purpose.
We are created by God to create with a driven purpose.
Number 1 tip.
Just start making stuff.
How do we seek? How do we ask for wisdom?
That's such a good question.
Have fun being what God has called you to be as a creative.
Mic drop. How are you guys?
Good.
Really? You don't look. You look amazing. You don't sound good. Yeah.
No, I'm burnt. We were out in the desert for a few days. It was 105 and
That's nuts.
I'm tired.
Making movies.
Making movies. Out there making movies.
That's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about.
Sure.
I'm glad you guys are both on. Jace Hardwick, Hudson Hopper, they decided to hop on and chat with me a little bit. Jace, this is your second time on
This
the
is my
podcast.
second one. I know. I was one of the second. I thought I was the first, but I found out today I was the second, so I'm a little bit disappointed about that. That's cool.
I had one episode that I had done with my good friend Abby Voigtman, and so that was like the first episode, and then but
I was on, my episode got cut. So
very true.
This is my first one. Get ready, it's gonna just be cropped right here.
Yeah.
For those of you that have only been here since it was called Created to Create, there's a little history with this podcast. It used to be called Impacted Creatives, and God's had a really cool story that's transitioned us from that to what we are now. And yeah, Hudson did have an episode that we had recorded, and then
I think one of the cameras powered down halfway through, so the audio was gone anyways.
It's a learning curve, you know what I mean? It's all about taking action and continuing to learn along the way, you know. I think you both are big advocates of that. So you don't want to take action.
No, you should just be good the first time, dude.
Yeah.
Just do better.
Don't take that seriously. Man, you're loopy from being out in the desert.
Bro, yeah. I'm gassed, dude.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Making movies is really difficult.
It's very hard.
Jace wanted to do this podcast 3 hours ago. He was in bed at that time. I told him we got to push it because he was on set yesterday shooting for a film that's going to show at our festival coming up this next week. Week and a half, 2 weeks.
Can you guys talk about that just a little bit? Like, why did you create that?
Yeah, I feel like you're better at explaining this than I am.
Yeah, I'll just have you tap in.
Yeah.
We founded Fuel the Fire Film Festival last year. We had our first one, and the mission behind it was getting people to create content that wasn't just for the standard commercial clients. All of us that are in LA, many had a dream of like, one day I want to make what I want to make. Make something that I feel like is cool and something that I believe in and that's exciting. And then we all get here and just get wrapped up in commercial work and just don't have the time to create. So at least where Jace and I, where our heart was at with it initially too, was just to encourage creatives across the spectrum, but believers as well, to just get out there and really create things that are dope and meaningful and can make an impact and aren't just another ad, another
for real.
commercial.
Well, I feel like our community out here too is just so like talented, and I think that was another thing too, is that we just wanted to push them to make stuff. And like on last podcast we talked about, it's like if you want to make movies, you have to go make movies and carve out time to do that, and it's not something that you can just put on the back burner. You just have to do it. And so I think we just looked at a lot of our community being like, yeah, you guys are you're so talented, but you're doing commercial and work for everybody else in the industry. Like, you need to make something. And last year it went off really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Actually-
mean, first year doing it, there was like at least 300 to 400 people that
Yeah.
showed up, packed out a theater. Atmosphere was nuts.
It was nuts.
12 films.
About 12 films. Every film was like, some people it was like their first time making one, and yet it was good. Like
Yeah.
they did a really good job. I didn't expect 300 people to show up.
Totally.
We thought like maybe 50. We're like, okay, and then
People flew in for it.
Yeah, people flew. Yeah.
Yeah, I showed a film as well, and the kid that I made my documentary about, him and his family flew out for it. 'Cause
Yeah.
they're so stoked on it being shown to more people.
There was people from North Carolina. There was people from Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people flew out. There's actually a lot of people hit me up asking for like tickets and stuff like that because they're like, I have to fly out, and so
They got to plan travel.
Yeah, exactly.
Puts a lot more pressure on you guys to get it rolling.
Yeah, and it better be good, right, Hudson?
Yeah, totally. The crazy thing with Fuel the Fire, which is like I think a lot of people don't see right away, is like both of us are working on like 4 different part-time jobs that are Fuel the Fire, and it's like making a film for it because we're like we want to be encouraged to create stuff.
Yeah,
too.
you got to practice what
Gotta
you preach.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If we're
You gotta be
saying
like,
you got time,
Make the films,
Yeah,
come, make
totally.
the films. You don't do anything.
exactly. So we're doing that.
We have like the least time
Yeah.
too. It's like
With the
you're
least
working.
time to make the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you're off. You're shooting all your stuff, and then you're making a movie, and then on top of that, you're running Fuel the Fire.
yeah, running the event itself, like planning, like pretty much a wedding.
Yeah,
It's like a wedding.
It
It's
is
like,
like, yeah.
There's like food, there's like venues, all of that, dealing with the budget, and then
Do you
there's
have
like
anybody helping you?
marketing an event.
Yes.
Yes, we do. I have Jace
Yeah.
most of the time. No,
Off and on.
no, Jace. So me and Jace run it.
Okay, let's
and
just
then,
be real. Hudson does a lot of work for this thing.
does,
He's
yeah.
being kind, but
Oh, I
he's
see it,
doing a
yeah.
lot of the work.
What I love about Jace is he is a visionary and he has ideas. And he sits there and goes, ideas. But no,
And then I go,
actually-
Hudson, do them.
No, it's
In
good. It
any
gets
great
me-
team, you have the idea man and you
Yeah.
have the action man.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's a great
Yeah,
duo.
the issue is we both want to be idea men. But Fuel the Fire. We're fueling that fire, right? We're creating
You are,
stuff.
yeah.
So
We do have a small team, though. We
yeah.
do have
Carly Dill helps us.
Carly Dill.
Hayden Trowbridge, before he takes my last name.
Gabe helps too.
Yeah,
and
Gabe helps.
yeah, they're doing a lot of like the back end marketing, kind of getting the word
Got
out and
it.
stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Is it a lot of grassroots marketing, or are you
Kinda.
putting it out there?
That's what we say when we're not marketing very well. No.
it's very grassroots.
No, yeah, most of the thing is like when we designed the event, we wanted it to be around this in-person experience. So much of us create really dope things, and it goes on an Instagram page, and someone scrolls through it. And one thing that I've realized is almost all like creative pieces or any artwork, it's all based on the context in which someone sees it. And so you can create a lot different, more meaningful pieces when people have a lower barrier to exit. And that's what's occurring when we do a film festival in person. People have their butts in the seat. Like last year, I showed a film that had 1.5 minute no cuts of someone experiencing an anxiety attack, and you can't leave.
You can't
Because
scroll.
You can't
past
scroll.
It.
Yeah.
Can't hit the exit.
You can't leave, and so that's part of the like cool thing about bringing people in is there's emotions that film can convey that we would have never been able to convey if we're just if it was a YouTube video, you would have clicked on the Mr. Beast thumbnail to the right.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
this is a moment where you're sitting there and you're saying, hey, I'm actually working with the director too to experience this. Of like, I know that they threw this together and made it happen. Like they're part of the process. The audience is
Yeah.
aware of that. Which even though none of us would sit there and watch 1.5 hours of short films or 1.5 hours of music videos, like
But
none
you're
of
there
us would
and
sit
then
down.
you
sit
enjoy
there
it.
and you enjoy it because
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
respecting the art in the context that it's presented.
Yeah,
And it's
I
a
would.
community. I feel like there's a community piece too. Like you're
Yeah.
coming together and you're watching it with people live.
Totally.
Like it's
Well,
not.
you're getting live feedback too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too that I think that a lot of like new directors need to experience is sitting in the theater with other people around you, and you're gonna feel in the room if you're doing what you attended to do or like attempted to do or not. Like if, especially because we do a lot of comedy stuff, so it's like if no one's laughing, you're gonna feel it really quickly. Or if people are like shifting in their seats and like are kind of bored, you're like, okay, this scene is dragging too long.
Yeah.
So you're getting live feedback, and I think it just makes you a better filmmaker too.
does.
That's another reason
Yeah.
why. Yeah.
I feel like nowadays I may be wrong, but this is like a hot take from me. I feel like nowadays we really don't like critique each other that much. We're always like yes men, even in community. Community can be based in just the fact that you're just supporting, and supporting it always has to be positive, always has to be encouraging, and I feel like there's not as much critiquing, especially in the art scene.
Yeah. I think it's actually more loving to tell me what you like about something and then tell me what didn't work, because that's truly what's going to make me better, right? It's like it's not all the that's so great, good job. It's like, okay, cool, I know it could be
So
better.
sick, dude.
Yeah, exactly. That's what every time.
Yeah, and I think it's all about context too.
Fire
Of like the bigger the audience, it's like harder in those moments to experience like any sort of real feedback until you like try to talk to individuals. Like, did this work for you? And so, because some people enjoy giving feedback when the person's like, they're actually just trying to present and not experience that. Or like the way we create is very much in this space of like, I'm trying to create.
Tell me what you liked about it, but
Yeah.
tell me what didn't work and why you didn't like it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because again, if you're trying to compete, like, this is something that's really fascinating to me, is that in the film industry, it's not like you have like, it's not like a sport where you know who the professionals are and there's like a way to climb to becoming a professional and you know who a professional athlete is. In film, you don't really like have those standards, and so you need good feedback to become a better director, to make better art as you go forward, because you need to understand like, okay, why didn't you like it? Did you not like it because you're not the audience? Because I have to make it for certain audiences, or I have to learn how to make scenes that are more engaging or do better writing. And so I think that's why the feedback stuff is so important too. It's like, so.
Especially at this level too, because it's not like you have Rotten Tomatoes.
No.
You don't have a bunch of critics that like their eyes are on your product or your movie or whatever you're making. So you have to kind of create that within your own community and try to get the feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. It is hard sometimes with what makes Fuel the Fire unique is it is a lot of our friends, but sometimes what does make it difficult is there is things that are funny because they recognize somebody.
Yeah.
And so we have to be careful too that you interpret the feedback in a way that it's that if I am trying to present this piece to a general audience, would they still laugh at this, or are they just laughing because they're seeing Jace?
Yeah, exactly.
How are you guys planning to like transition out of the not out of the community, but transition past that? Because obviously with anything, you always start with your community.
Totally.
You always start with the people closest to you, whether it's like a startup, a product that you're trying to like release, and you're like, oh, friends and family, what do you think of this? Before you go to more and more people, how are you planning on like pushing that further?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah. In some ways, with Fuel the Fire, what is exciting this year is I know less of the directors personally.
Yeah.
That's
and
big.
that's been kind of our mission in some ways too. Is that the goal of Fuel the Fire of encouraging people to create and take those next steps moves beyond just our direct like some sort of insular friend group, but that the Venn diagrams that are the LA friend groups that all kind of overlap, that we're able to touch into other ones to really encourage that from a lot of these creatives that grew up creating in their room and tinkering and making things and sharing on YouTube, and so have never really experienced what it's like to show a piece in front of an audience and experience not just a number on the bottom, but experience something that is an emotion of a room that's pretty special.
I think it was also interesting too with like the very first one. We actually had more people outside of our group than I thought we would have, which I thought, the third rendition of this then would be like, okay, we'd be even bigger. But I feel like this next one, we don't really actually. Most of the people that are in that like directors list that are making films, I don't even know who they are, which is great. Like that's awesome because we're expanding the thing, and that's the whole point. It's like it doesn't just have to be our group. It can be like we want to welcome people into the community to make stuff.
100%.
So,
And to like even show testament to that, being close to you guys, the first idea you had was literally just to like get people in a room like this with a TV. It wasn't even like a theater.
that was the
event.
original. Yeah, it was like we could just do this at the house or whatever.
And it was like, oh, maybe we should get this, and then maybe we got a theater.
Somehow we got the theater. Yeah. Gabe
We bought a
Rubiano
zoo.
coming in clutch.
It's like that.
We bought a zoo. Yeah.
So it happens.
I think when it comes to product, not just Fuel the Fire, but for the filmmakers trying to expand outside of their network, I think the thing that we were trying to encourage a lot this year was try to make something that you would actually want to go pitch as a product, right? Because that's the whole point. It's like there's like, okay, we can go make stuff and we can make short films or we can make YouTube videos, that's fine. But this specifically, what we're trying to grow it into is make something that you're going to go pitch and sell as a product. And so you can start with your community, get feedback from your community, kind of use this, actually Fuel the Fire, as like a testing ground. At least that's what we're doing. Oh. Said no.
Yeah.
Using Fuel the Fire as a testing ground and then taking that data and kind of going out so that you can start pitching it outward, right? So,
Do you plan on like basically trying to at one point connect those people to like investors, people that you would pitch to, or?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, I mean, this year we're actually inviting a few people that I think are going to be in the room that are connected to different networks and stuff like that. I can't really say who, but connected to finance and all that stuff, because I do want the people that I know in those spaces to see this community and be like, hey, this is the next generation. Because I think that's the other heart of it too, is like building up the next generation of filmmakers that we believe in. And so I want a lot of those people to show up and be like, hey, look, there are some up and coming people trying to pitch and sell.
Yep.
So the hope would be is that they come and they see some really cool stuff, and then it's like, hey, grab coffee with these people afterwards.
Yep.
Right. And that's a lot of like the after party. It's just connecting those
Yep.
people. So.
And especially in an era where so many film festivals are like 90% of them are scams pretty much. They're charging for admission fee. You sit there and you watch it with 20 other people and you watch it with the other people that made films, which is dope. But the goal is like, we're going to give out 20 awards and 22 people are going to submit, and so that you can put your banner on your Vimeo.
Yeah.
And our mission has never been that. It's actually been the opposite of that, of not charging directors, giving directors this opportunity to share, so that they, instead of them having already something done that they're just like, oh, I'm going to toss this to this thing and throw money here, throw money here. It's like, no, I'm going to invest in the product, and we're going to walk alongside you and say, hey, how's it going? Are you still working on it? You still working on it? Feel that pressure of like, okay, there's a little bit of heat happening, and then, okay, I got to create something, because it's not going to be one of these small film festivals where 10 people are sitting in the room, 20 people are sitting in the room. We're going to have 300 people there. They're going to watch your piece and be like, yo, who was the gaffer there?
Yeah.
We want to hire that person.
Yeah,
and there's been a lot of those things that's been really cool.
Yeah.
It's like, part of it is to say, like so many of us have dreams about who we want to be and what it is. Part of it's to say, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm capable of, because our network is so powerful to bring other people and really create things.
Well, I think that's also the long-term goal too. It's like eventually I would hope that the festival would become something where it's like, yeah, you don't have to pay to submit, but if you got invited to submit, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And for other people to show up to be like, oh, this person, their film got accepted, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Because if we're inviting all these people that I want to see the films that have money, then it's like, hey, show up to this thing. This is your pool to look at for, investing in something like this. So
No, it's cool to see, and I think you guys are creating that demand too, especially when you're investing in time to, network yourselves, meet the people that are gonna provide the actual value to filmmakers, hire them on bigger movies or fund bigger ideas and bigger movies. Then it does become more of a, like, in your career, like, oh, I see Fuel the Fire Film Fest as a stepping stone into the next phase of my career, rather than just like, oh, I'm a filmmaker, that's another film festival, I'm going to enter it there and see if I win an award.
It's like, actually I show up there and I can find, which actually is a good idea. Maybe we should put the films and then a list of the crew at the end when we're at the after parties just there. You just have the list of everybody that worked on it.
Have everybody's phone number.
Yeah,
Just like
literally
text
like their email. And
Yeah,
it's
or
like,
something.
Here's all the ACs. Here's all the
Yeah,
ACs.
for real.
Yeah.
know,
That's
something like
Everybody
that.
sets up their booth afterwards. You just have a whole
Yeah.
conference.
Oh, you're the AC for that?
No, there is
But for real.
something to that, because in some ways it is this awesome opportunity. Like, yo, who DP'd that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
sick. So,
Yeah.
Live brainstorming.
yeah, exactly.
At its finest.
Here, if you want to just.
So we should actually do this.
On Creating to Create, we're actually going to be talking about. Oh, you guys are.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I did have an interesting question. You guys mentioned like faith as well, and bringing, building up Christian creatives, Christian filmmakers. What's your take on just Christian filmmaking in general, and like where it's at now, where it was, and even your piece in like pushing people to be better and to make better things?
That is a deep question.
Yeah. I like asking deep questions.
There's a lot. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts to that, but
You want me to start it off?
yeah,
and then take it from there?
yeah, I do better when you say something and then I say something better.
Yeah, it's perfect. You can just trump me every time.
1-2 punch.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
He jabs, I come in with something.
I love
Cross-up.
it. We think that in many ways over the last 2 decades and before that, just Christians have bailed from Hollywood. They were never really here. They were around.
How so?
They were in some ways around, but especially over the last couple of decades, just even the more common values in certain pieces have been left, and Christians have fled to their own streaming services. They fled to their own insular content. We used to have much more content with the big 3 networks when people grew up. Like your parents' generation had 3 networks on the TV, and that was one of the 3 that they watched. And so these were much more moderate, less kind of far-reaching things. And then now we're in this place where filmmaking is at this super wide breadth, where you don't watch anything that your parents watch because your parents have their own streaming services. That's their own relegated piece to their own little corner. And it's epic in some ways, but it creates this ultimate echo chamber. And the one that is formed around Christianity in regards to film for a while until the last kind of 5 years was pretty atrocious. It was
fairly cringy.
Because there's something called lowest common denominator content, where it's content that will reach the widest audience, and lowest common denominator Christian content is one of the worst things because you have such a wide scale of Christians in regards to media. And so when they're trying to please everyone inside of Christendom with media, you get Bible Man. Because it's like...
What's wrong with Bible
Yeah,
Man?
bro.
I love Bible Man.
Okay,
Bible
Bible
Man's
Man's
my favorite show growing up.
Bro, the lightsaber duels at the park, it's crazy. But you get... so there was so much content that was kind of middle of the road, and if as someone that cares about scripture, that would just kind of be be really hokey and weird, and but believers are hungry for good content, but they're a really difficult audience. So when Hollywood does try to step in and say, hey, we're gonna do something, most of the time they'll take it a little bit weird, and instead of believers being like, thank you for giving it a shot and making the Noah movie,
They're like, how dare
it's
you?
I
you're not
can't
getting a
believe
Dove
it.
Award.
Yeah, totally. And so it is very distinctive a market. So I think things like The Chosen.
What's that Christian critique website or whatever?
Oh,
Film
Plugged
critique?
In.
Plugged in.
Plugged
Yeah,
In
yeah.
by Focus on the Family.
Yeah.
Oh, Common Sense.
Just a 0.
Yeah,
Just get a 0 on
exactly.
there.
But now recently with things like The Chosen over the last kind of 5 years, creating higher quality content that believers throw money at things like nobody else.
Oh my gosh,
It is one of the highest between horror films and Christian films. It is where the most money is spent in the industry, which is nuts to me.
Because
Crazy.
of how poor
Yeah.
so many
Yeah.
of those films
Yeah.
have been. And so much of what we're trying to do is saying, hey, we have really talented creators that have worked on a lot of real things, created some dope content. Let's try to encourage people to create content that has an impact. And sometimes explicitly, and sometimes creating great art in the realm of a Tolkien or a Lewis.
Well, because I'm way more fantasy driven and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm more in the camp of making good art and being just now's your time, bro.
We talked about this beforehand.
Yeah.
We talked about this beforehand, and I was gonna not laugh, but it's too much.
He's got to
on the
replenish,
75
dude.
hard grind.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. So
Listen,
I'm shooting a music video, which is an allegory for the gospel.
you're dripping, bro.
So I'm shooting a music video over the next 3 days, which is an allegory for the gospel, with my buddy Cello. And I'm already dehydrated, and so I have committed to drinking a lot of water before then. Sorry, what were you saying?
Doesn't matter now.
It doesn't matter, bro. It doesn't matter. I don't know. I was saying
You're
like,
on fantasy.
well, yeah.
filmmaking.
So because I wanted to just drink the water, bro. Do it. Just do it.
Bro, it's like a baptism, bro. Full immersion there.
Well, I grew up on like Lord of the Rings and Narnia, and like that's
Yeah.
what I want to make, and so I've kind of come more into the camp of like, I do think we need better Christian art for sure, but I'm more in the camp of making things that are honest and true, and I think that when you really push like stories and you let things that are objectively true come through, that's more of what like a lot of audiences want. Is they want truth to be truth. It's like evil is evil, good is good. What are like the good moral values that a hero can have. And more often than not, it's like I don't really watch a lot of like Christian content, but I love the content that is true to, I don't know, things that we just observe in the world, right? It's like beating up on somebody, bullying somebody, that's not a good thing, as long as you don't highlight that as a good thing. It's like, I want to see that type of stuff. And so
Most
I think
people don't like when you glorify that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and I
they
think
look at it and they're like, that's bad storytelling.
Yeah, and I think that they think that they want that, but then really
When it actually happens.
Yeah, and then it actually happens, and you're like, wait, that's terrible, and I don't want that. And it's funny because I talked to one of my mentors, and we talked about like Breaking Bad versus Friends. Like, I love the show Friends; it's super fun, whatever. But like, the moral of the story at the end of every episode is just kind of these friends like messing around, and it's like it's all good, and they just make jokes about everything. Versus Breaking Bad, it's like you're actually watching somebody like go down the path of sin until they just break and it just falls apart and everything goes to whatever, right? But it's honest, right? Like it's kind of a dark show, but it's honest and like, well, if you go down this route, this is what would happen, right? And so I think I'm more in the camp of like, yes, we need to make really good Christian content. I love The Chosen. Like, I would love to make Bible epic stuff that's like honest to the Bible, but I think it's more about pushing artists that have those values of like, let's push like what is true in the world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because it's tough too when you like in the Christian. I think one of the bigger problems in the Christian world is like everybody wants to talk about the reality that we're saved from sin, but they don't want to talk about the sin, or they don't want to show the sin because that's taboo, because that's gonna like cause people to stumble or whatever. And so it becomes this dichotomy because you're like, well, I want to tell the full story, but almost like when you cut the sin out, then it's like, well, what story are you going to tell? Because you don't go through the pain, and so you can't get to the point of like brokenness to get saved.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably one of the best ways to put it. It's like you don't want to show the sin, you don't want to show how dark it can be, right? And so then it doesn't really have like an impact on anybody, you know? So
one thing I think in that, which you're identifying, is there's the Christian genre, Christian content as a genre.
Yeah.
So like worship music, Phil Wickham, awesome, you know, and it's like it's designed for a Christian audience. It is inside this genre of Christian, and then there is gospel truth art, and that can be art that even sometimes that can be created by non-believers or can be created by a mixed group, but something that does reveal the art. And so even my pastor recently has pushed me inside of that a lot of horror films are gospel truth in a way that many other genres aren't, because they are one of the few genres that generally respect the name of Jesus, that are saying like in moments of chaos and people like, I believe The Exorcist, I am a scared person, so I don't watch such things. A man of fear. But that every other attempt, whether it by human volition, whether it by witchcraft or anything to attempt to deal with the enemy, fails until the name of Christ comes out. And so there is ways in which genres in which many times believers would be fearful of because of what their association is, because they've grown up in this like media is supposed to make me feel good and happy, which is not what the Bible is at all. And the Bible has these like moments of like real moral failings, but moral failings that you look at and that God says, I'm still going to use this person. I mean, that's the entirety of the Old Testament.
we're not good, he is.
We're not good, he is. And he's able to use you even though you're broken. And so creating art that shows that is like it can be hard because
Yeah.
the Christian audience sometimes does have difficulty with those characters.
Yeah.
But I think in general, that is the way that best represents gospel
Yeah.
truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting too, because like again, I loved Lord of the Rings, and I don't think Peter Jackson's a believer, and yet he helped direct that whole thing, and that's actually probably a tool that I use all the time when I'm talking to non-believing friends. It's like because they love Lord of the Rings, and there's so much truth in that, and so yeah, like I actually have never heard that before. It's like the non-Christian genre, or the Christian. There's a what did you say? It was smart. Just cut to that part.
Yeah,
where it
we'll
was
just go
smart.
back.
Yeah.
What he said.
Whatever he said was smart.
Just
chug
cut
this
back-
water.
Just cut back to him chugging. Do you think like, well, maybe you can answer this to like our time now, but do you think it's taboo in Hollywood for Christians to make art like that, or like Christian art, or do you think it ever has, or do you think that like people are scared to make Christian art in Hollywood? Like Christians are scared to jump into that in Hollywood?
That's a large question.
Yeah, so I don't have a lot of experience with traditional Hollywood at
Yeah,
all. And
yeah.
interacting
Or
with
or
the
we'll
studio
say LA.
system.
Well,
Yeah.
for our context, we'll say LA.
I would say from like my experience and what I've seen, there is a fear from middle America that LA is this like cesspool and dangerous place for believers. And so there's a lot of people that are scared to like, I don't want my kids to go to LA. They're going to be changed. They're going to be, LA being in many ways this like pinnacle of culture that has the ability to transform a lot of the rest of the country because we are the that hub. I think that it's super important that believers are here, and that, but that believers don't run in by themselves and going to be like, I'm going to change this, and then stay isolated, and
Yeah.
then you become your 5 closest friends, you know, and then they just
Yeah.
build up some sort of friend group, and that's what me and Jace have been believed in for so long, and just like our community in general has been, believers hold each other tighter in opposition communities. And like Christianity was designed, whether intentionally or unintentionally, flourishes. Christianity flourishes in opposition. It is an oppositional movement to a general culture.
Yeah.
It really struggles in this weird place, like where I come from in Texas in the Bible Belt, because there's this weird culture, nationalism, Christianity mix. Everyone's a believer, but no one's really into this thing that's just like hard to deal with. And I've actually noticed that like places like here, there is no social advantage to being a believer. And so it is actually, when you encounter someone that does refer to themselves as that, there's a greater brother and sisterhood between that. And so there's actually a beauty here where believers hold themselves tighter and closer to each other because they know, hey, this is a place in which, in general, we're not overly accepted. But
I would also say, again, I'm not like super in the Hollywood sphere either, but I have a lot of mentors that are in it. And from what I've seen, you have to remember that everybody has a worldview, and these companies have worldviews. And so I don't think it's necessarily always the fact that it's like, oh, well, because I'm a Christian, you just don't want to make my film. It's like, or you're just not good yet, and the content that you're making is just bad.
Yeah.
And I think there's also that whole subculture where it's like, well, God's on my side, so the film will be really good. It's like, no, you still gotta be a good artist, right?
Like
Like,
put in the work.
yeah, and like The Chosen is kind of an example of, it's like, it's good enough to where even mainstream media is like, yep, this is really good. Like, let's put it out. And I do think that there is that subculture where there's a lot of Christians that are like, well, Hollywood just doesn't want me because they hate me because I'm a Christian. It's like, or you're just not good yet.
or you
and
don't know
need
how
to
to
be
focus your camera.
yeah, like you need to be good, good storytelling. And it's kind of going to what you said too with the like, subgenre of Christianity, like the Christian genre, where it's like we don't talk about really hard things. So like the film is just like, it's just lackluster. It's just like
storyline is just.
it's just, let me
It's
just
like
tell you the
flatline.
gospel. Like, let me just tell it to you, and you're like, I don't, that's not how you would do it normally. Like,
Yeah.
And so I think there's that. I will say that I do think there isn't really an advantage in LA to being a believer, but recently, because The Chosen and there isn't an explosion of that, I do think that you're seeing more confidence in the Christian community to be like, okay, I can be more outspoken and let's like actually make something. But again, you do have to realize that you are going against other worldviews in the industry, and sometimes people want to push other worldviews that aren't your worldview. And like you said, Christianity is, when it's done right, is kind of in opposition to the rest of what the world's doing. So,
of course.
So you are going to stick out.
There is this strange thing that I didn't expect from LA when I initially arrived, is that LA isn't like a Portland, and it's not like Europe, which Europe is very secular and very non-spiritual. LA does operate as a very spiritual city and shares more with the East in that way. And so
it is a little bit,
Yeah, so if you introduce yourself as a Christian or a follower of Jesus, most people are like, oh, you go,
okay.
like, cool. Or like, oh, so what's it like?
Dude,
you like,
so supportive, actually.
They're like really supportive. Or like, oh, you're in like a community, like, what's your community? It's until there's a worldview confrontation.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's until it's like, this is affecting how, because it is very much you do you, me do me.
But if you tell me what to do,
but if you tell me what to
then
do,
it's
or you
like-
tell me that you think I'm doing it wrong, then
it's a problem.
there's a potential value clash, which isn't the same experience as believers that are living in a more secular society, where there is like a negative connotation.
There's an immediate awkward wall when you say I'm a believer.
Where people hear like, oh, like community vibe, it's like my ice bath group, it's like my run club.
There's a whole spectrum of spirituality, and Jesus
totally.
falls on that spectrum in the worldview, in the society, and so they're like, oh yeah, you're kind of there.
In the same way in the East, where you can just toss in Jesus with the other gods.
Yeah.
It's the same feeling here, where you can toss in Jesus with your ice bath and
It's
your
when you start
kombucha.
saying
It's when you
ultimate-
go,
Yeah.
everybody else, Jesus.
Yeah,
Totally.
Then it's
ultimate
like,
truth.
ooh,
Then
Yeah.
it's like,
That's
well, how
tough,
do you
bro.
know that yours is the right one? It's
Totally.
like, well, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That is tough. But it is kind of cool, I guess. I think it becomes a little bit more of a receptive environment, because if you're open to having a conversation, then you're able to like speak truth, and at the end of the day, like, truth will win, and especially truth straight from the Word of God, straight from Jesus himself. That is the ultimate ticket, and I think that will win, other than kind of just like trying to debate your own opinion. Like, if you're debating your own opinion with somebody, that's probably not going to go over well, because there's always going to be clash, and there's always going to be like, he said, she said, or whatever. But when you're debating truth versus opinion, it's not your opinion, it's just objective truth. And like, you don't have to debate that, you just have to speak the truth, and then the truth convicts, rather than like you trying to convince.
Yeah.
Here's one of my relatively controversial opinions. It's time to start sharing them. No. But when you would go to the mall when you were like in third grade, and there was this big like funnel that you could put a coin down, and it would go down into the bottom. I thought
you were going to start talking about Victoria's Secret and how your dad would shade you from like
no, I'm shading myself, bro. Eyes down. It's the Apple store that I get. Man, all those iPads. But okay, so you're in the mall and you have that. I see that as there is this like gravitational pull towards the truth but requires momentum. And so what's super dangerous is when you're a piece of gum that's stuck on the side, that's not moving, that's not moving down towards truth. And if we as believers say, hey, we believe that Jesus is the ultimate personification of truth, then he sits at that bottom of the funnel, then we actually have zero fear in getting anyone to move anywhere along this. So any sort of conversation with people, even someone who begins deconstructing or questioning, I generally hold as often can be a good thing, because what was often before is they were a piece of gum that was just stuck on the side, that either was like grew up and had the name of Christianity but never really thought of it. So even if the momentum, I feel like, is like, if someone's exploring and questioning something, I'm like, read more. And what is beautiful is if we do believe that Jesus is the bottom of this truth, then there's no fear in encouraging people to move, even if it means encouraging someone. If there's a believer that's struggling, it's like, I actually don't. It's not, hey, I'm just handing you 12 Christian pamphlets. I'm like, read everything. Read it all, because I am convinced that in momentum you will be led to Jesus, because Jesus is the ultimate truth.
Well, and that kind of goes with the whole idea of like a broad spectrum of filmmaking too, where it's like, if you read the Bible, there's no hold back in it. So let's talk about hard issues. Let's talk about all that stuff. Like, let's just
momentum creating films, you know, where you walk out of the film and you're like, dang, I'm working with stuff. I'm thinking about, you watch Interstellar and you're like, how small I am. Yeah. You know, and like, and that starts this momentum train of thought that, okay, we can, that will lead to conversations and lead to. I
always love hearing someone be like, yeah, I read a bunch of stuff. It answered a lot of questions, but now I have more questions and I have some other doubts. I'm like, great. Yeah. Like, welcome to every day of my life.
Journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Are you guys like, where's the spectrum of like films that you want to be shown at Fuel the Fire? Like, where do you guys draw the line?
Well, it was interesting because we actually talked about this. So last year, it definitely was like, hey, the mission statement is we're made in the image of a creator to create, and so let's create things. And so it definitely was more like,
you might say, oh, sorry.
We
created to create.
Sorry, the podcast name. Too bad you had that.
Oh, sorry.
Too bad you had that brand.
And so last year was a lot more, I think, on the spectrum of just like Christian content. This year, Hudson kind of wanted to take more of the approach of like widening the net more. Yeah. That was kind of the approach this year. And so the spectrum of film is just, it's narrative. So anything narrative was and is welcome at the festival.
Narrative, PG-13 or below, and doesn't glorify
evil being evil.
Yeah, it doesn't glorify evil as good.
Again, being truth, just being truth. Doesn't mean it doesn't have to be a Christian film, but it's just like, let truth be true. Like, is it true? Then yeah.
And that's always the kind of the battle of any of these things. Am I placing myself in the Christian genre, or am I wanting to do something broader? I think one thing that the way we'll probably talk about it from the stage, as we did last year too, is talking about the festival itself being not having specific views, but me and Jace, where we're at, which encourages us to create, is blank. And so that's generally the language you'll hear. Fuel the Fire is to encourage creators to create. Yeah. And me and Jace, we believe that because we were created in the image of God, and when we create stuff, we are stepping into the first attribute that is Yahweh's. The first attribute that's divine in Genesis 1 is that he is a creator. Yeah. And by the time we are mentioned as being created in the image of God, there is only a single attribute that has been assigned to God at that point. A one who creates good things. So we are called to create good things.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I always like the analogy where it's like Jesus taught the masses and then ministered to the individual. And I think also it's like, it's not a perfect analogy, but like for the church, it's like everybody's welcome to the church. But then if you're going to become a member of the church, now we're going to hold you to a different accountability. And so I think this is more of just like just come enjoy the event, be part of this community. And then if you want to know more or
it's not like you're creating membership through it or like.
No. And my dad said recently, which was really good, it said that sometimes Christianity is a dance. So it's a bunch of believers doing some sort of synchronized dance. And I've noticed this where unbelievers see our friend group and us, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. It's like some weird dance that's happening in the park. And you're like, kind of like bent over, and you're like, oh, what's this? You know, like, this is kind of fun. Yeah, hey, and that's like what we've noticed from so many people. So like, there's people that hang out with us as a squad and from all over because it's, I want to be a part of this dance, even though I'm not like in whatever y'all are in. Something interesting going on here, and that's the like beauty of like the call of a believer to be this pocket of heaven that's attractive to a world that's collapsing and in chaos.
Yeah, it's like essentially throwing like a lifesaver out. Like you're just like, or it's like a beam of hope. You're like, this is what we are because of what Jesus did, and we're gonna live our life and we're gonna talk about it because we believe in it. But we're not gonna be like, you have to do this down your throat. It's more of just like we're living.
Yeah, be the light of the world.
Yeah, be the light of the world.
Yeah,
for
totally.
Sure.
Which I think
and be an outreach of love. Sorry, like be an outreach of love too. Like you can't just be living your world. Your own thing. Like that's a bubble. You can't be like just a light bulb sitting there. You have to be like a river that's flowing out and doing.
And it, like, if we think of ourselves as like heaven and this royal priesthood now, of like, this is where we're at, and this is where I think the art conversation comes about, is like from Christianity's origin, like we were the ones, like the origin of hospitals, like the origin of like caring for people, and like in many ways the protectors of art for so long. So much art came through the church. And so it was this place that was this like bastion of hope for many people. And then over many years that became like perverted, and people seeing it as like, this is the oppressive place versus the place that actually gave the framework in which to live free.
Yeah. Well, that's just corruption too. That's sin, like at its finest, because it corrupts good things. Yeah. And it takes like good intentions and it twists it, and it's like, oh well, you could take this for yourself, like this little tiny bit, like that'll be fine. Like, oh, like you're protecting these people, you're healing these people in a hospital, but you can like take some money for yourself on the side, and then it just starts corrupting. Yeah.
And Jesus is a storyteller. He told really good stories. I want to tell good stories.
So would you say like then going back to like what you were saying earlier, the best way to not corrupt a good story is to let truth flow?
Be honest.
That's kind of like what you were.
Yeah, honestly, like, and again, I think as a viewer, you kind of have to have your own discernment about what you should and shouldn't watch, and you know what age you are when you're watching certain things. And like, I won't watch certain films because I just know I want to stay away from certain things. But I do know that I've watched some secular films that are really, really honest, and it's still speaking about truth, and it's not pushing a gospel message, but at the same time it's like, but this is a good film, and it made me think about that issue, and that's a really hard issue, and that's an honest thing to talk about. You know what I mean? So
no, I get it. That's cool. Well, you guys are doing a good work, and I mean, especially from a community standpoint, I think like with this podcast and with this movement, it's very similar of like me wanting to inspire people to build that community, to do the things, to take action. So it's cool to have you guys as an example to point to. Guys, follow along, honestly, because they're doing a great job, even though sometimes I don't think so.
We're our worst critics.
We all are. Hudson, I want to point you a question, because I know you're big into like helping people strive for just like greatness in their own personal life, and kind of bringing this into like, how do I as a person like pursue greater things for myself in like all facets of life, but in your words, like how does someone like pursue more of a fulfilling life? Yeah,
totally. And that's one thing that I've become really passionate about over the last couple of years, and specifically this last year, is helping creatives live a fulfilling life. And realizing that many of us grew up in a passion-centric culture that emphasized, you want to go make movies, live your dream. That was the language that was spoken to us. And then many people that pursued football, pursued movies, they got there and it wasn't fulfilling. Because in many ways they were prioritizing their passion over prioritizing a life that aligned with their values across the board. And so what I really encourage from creators, especially in the content creator space, we live very cool lives to the rest of especially middle America, and many of us aren't happy. And so like, I think the travel space is one of the greatest examples. You have a lot of travel photographers and travel filmmakers that are lonely, that don't have community, they don't have connection, they don't have friends, that aren't consistently in a church, that are able to attend church once a month because, I'm like traveling, I'm doing this, and then they're like wondering why all of these, they have what they wanted, right? But what they haven't realized is that the other facets of their life that they do value aren't being fulfilled because they're doing something like traveling the world all the time. Not that it's not good to ever do those things, but you have to be really careful. And so a lot of what I do when talking to creatives is start building out a lifestyle-centric planning versus a planning that's just around passion. So it does involve your passion, but that might mean, hey, I really want to be on set 1 or 2 days a week, directing something, making something happen. But what also really gets me excited is teaching people or working with people or just playing sports with people on a Thursday at 2 p.m. And so building around, hey, what's the next step that I have to take right now so that I can live a life that prioritizes being able to help people and care for people and the things that are fulfilling versus just doing the thing that, I always dreamed about doing, even though that is important. But so often I think becomes the solo focus. And as a result, we start living lives that I want to be a filmmaker. I want to do it. And then you're on a 16-hour-a-day set and you're working at some big studio and everyone else is like, you're living the dream. And you're like, I haven't seen my wife and my kids in forever. That's what happens to a lot of creators.
You start to get like abused by the industry or abused by whatever you're chasing. Rather
Totally.
than
It becomes like an idol.
Totally. It becomes all-encompassing and realizing that and it's not about some like arbitrary concept of balance, but it's about really living this life that connects with the pieces of your life that you value and then pushing towards those. So if, as a believer, there are certain things that really speak into what you should be valuing and prioritizing. Often the first step, even if I'm talking to a non-believer, is just getting them to say, hey, what are the things that I value? Do you value time with your family? Do you value flexibility? Your physical fitness? Like, how do we then build a life that does fulfill those items?
Do you think passion is wrong then, or is it?
No, passion's great.
Okay.
Passion is just it's not the whole picture.
Yeah.
And so passion-centric planning is tricks you into thinking that that's leading to fulfilling life, which it is definitely an aspect. Because like I'm passionate about filmmaking, I'm passionate about directing pieces. If I exclusively directed pieces and that trumped my value for community or connection or my faith, then all of a sudden I'm reaching this issue where it would start tearing me apart, which is weird because in like the 90s, early 2000s, if it's like, you do this, you go make your dreams happen, everyone can be president, you can be president. You know, like that was the like ethos. We can't be president. No. We are not old enough. But
Eventually one day.
One day, maybe.
We'll get there.
But that's just one thing I've realized. I've taken a lot from Cal Newport's work on this kind of lifestyle-centric planning idea and realized that like, especially believers constantly making the excuse for like, I can't be in a committed community because blah, 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 blah. And realizing like, no, you've just built a life around exclusively this passion versus is this something that you really value? Because sometimes like your current schedule reveals where you really value things right now. And so taking steps of like, what do I actually want to be? What's a life that in 5 years I'm living and I'm excited to live because it's one that's fulfilling more than just my purpose, like more than just my passion, but my overall purpose.
It's funny because you go make a film and stuff like that, and then the first thing you want to do once you're done, go make another one. Because you're not ever. Because
it's not.
Yeah, you'll never be satisfied in it.
I forget which quarterback it was that after one, I forget which number Super Bowl ring. He had won 3 or 4 or 5, and by the end of it was just like,
Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think Tom Brady has a quote there at the end after a Super Bowl.
It's like, what's the point anymore?
Yeah, where it was just cool, like great.
He accomplished it all. Lost his wife, lost his family.
Yeah, you're like great. And a lot of guys, I think that's the issue. One thing I'm super passionate is male friendships post college. They are decreasing, especially among men. Females post-college are much better at maintaining friendships. Guys, almost always, you ask someone in their 30s or 40s, you say, who is your best friend? They will mention someone from college. You ask them when the last time they talked to them was, they'd say sometime in the last year. You haven't interacted with them personally. They know Bill from work and Jim from work, but then all of a sudden when something starts getting hard with their wife, can't talk to Bill or Jim from work, and then females are the primary designer of the social schedule in marital relationships. So she's bringing you in with her friend and her friend's husband that you're talking about the game with, but then all of a sudden something starts going wrong in your marriage, and all you have is the person that's connected through your wife to talk to, versus like a real community of believers that can have you work through stuff, that can have you really focus on that. And that happens now as we're here at 22, 23, 24, 25, how we approach friendships, especially as men, maintaining those relationships. 29, 30, 35. 45, 55.
You're not that much older.
But yeah, really, I think
It's all down here next year. Like after that, once I hit 30, I'm going.
bro, I might have to get someone else.
30
for my
over the
film
hill
festival.
now? Am I like missing something?
No, once
I
I'm
thought 30s were your new 20s. That was the same.
Oh yeah, I hope so.
Just in LA,
Apparently,
or
I'm
is
just
that
gonna
just
lose all my
something-
friends and have no connections. And
Not you, because you are living a life that aligns with your values, brother. Yeah, no, that's
Better get married quick, bro. That's all you got. That's all you got, man. I'm abandoning you.
I'm out, bro. I'm gone after that.
Yeah, but yeah, something that I'm deeply passionate about.
So you're essentially purpose versus passion.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying. It's like
Yep, and living a life that aligns with your values.
Yeah.
Because sometimes some of those other words, we've heard them so much that they get kind of just like
diluted.
Because living a life that aligns with your values can sometimes not having you work a job that you are super excited to do, but one that fulfills and frees you to really focus on the things you want to. Which is not how some people, but sometimes in that season of life, if your value is your family, then taking the consistent job that you enjoy less can prioritize really the thing that you value.
Yeah, that's good.
how do you find that though? Like how do you start? Like for somebody that's listening, that's like, I don't know where to start. Like
totally.
I feel trapped, or I just don't know anybody. Like never gotten along with anybody or whatever. Like how do you even start gravitating towards finding the purpose, finding the people that align with your community, people that you can rely on?
Yeah.
Building friendships is not necessarily an easy thing.
It's not.
Because like I can speak into that, because like it's a 2-part equation. Like you have to be willing to be friends with them, and they have to be willing to be friends with you.
Totally.
You have to find common ground. And so like for me, growing up, high school, middle school, high school, even college, like I was always like, oh, I want to be friends with you. Like I want to find my people. And I always felt like I was somebody that was like putting so much into friendships and not getting anything really in return from most people.
Yeah.
So how do you like find that as somebody who's struggling in that area?
Yeah, totally.
How do you start?
I think the starting is I've noticed from my friends that left college and didn't start, that didn't really build a lot of connections, was a lack of initial prioritizing it well.
How's that?
And so it was like, great, I'm out of college, I'm going to go to work, and then I'm going home. Yeah. And so part of it is like, okay,
put the effort
I'm going to start putting in effort on in both community-based hobbies of like, hey, I'm going to actually like go to a new church and then talk to people and just stay around. And there's moments of like, okay, even if you're introverted, but going to a new church and then not going to a different church the next week, and then a different church the next week and a different one. This is something that is an illusion that a lot of content creators experience, is especially travel filmmakers have the ability to get deep quickly with people because they've traveled and seen so many people. So they'll be like, wow, it's like I connected so great with someone in a week. It is an illusion of depth because of a natural vulnerability that's been developed over time of I have to be vulnerable for an attempt to connect really fast. And what it lacks is accountability that comes along with a consistent relationship over time. Mm-hmm. And so part of it is committing to certain things and then just keep showing up to that same thing.
I think that's also a key word in our generation is commitment. I think I talk about that a lot with a lot of people, is committing to people, because real friendships aren't like the illusion of like, well, we got deep really fast and we had a fun time. Real friendships are like, we've been hanging out for a while, you're going through a really bad season, I'm going to stick around and I'm going to be here for you even when you kind of suck right now, but you're my friend and I want to help you. Like commitment there, I think, is like a huge key.
Because commitment allows for when it's not going well, I'm like, yo,
It's
Chase,
a choice.
what's up? Like
Yeah.
I'm showing up and like knocking on your door. And there's a level that doesn't happen when we are constantly moving. And so many of us flee uncomfortability. We're like some of the most annoying people from the rest of the country, and we all came to LA, right? And there's this like freedom, right? Like we can
all be annoying together.
Yeah, totally. But there's this like level of like
in the desert.
yeah, exactly. Let's go dance in the desert. But everything was about like freedom. But we don't realize that true freedom is not one where we get ultimate options, but it's this opportunity to experience a certain level of depth.
Without rules, you can't play basketball or any sport.
Exactly.
Right? That's the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the whole thing right there. And so much I feel like people are like, I showed up once and there wasn't anyone that was kind of my
And no one
vibe.
walked up to me,
Yeah.
and nobody came to me, so
And
nobody
it's
wants
hard.
to connect with me. Yeah.
It's hard. And I
It is
think
hard.
the reason that it happens this way is because of how difficult it is, and how now as a society the way we're set up, it's less natural.
Yeah,
and
it is.
so it's happening more and more where to really say, hey, I'm going to prioritize friendships, you have to take this step and say, I'm committing to this each day, and I'm committing to show up to the weird Wednesday night Bible study with the one person. That's how I'm in this house.
Yeah.
That's how I live and know any of y'all, is because I was in LA, I was lonely, I was sleeping on the floor, I had 2 friends, 3, and I was like, I really need to get into Bible study. And so I texted this like weird guy that I had met at this one church once, and I was like, yo, Gabe, you got a Bible study? He's like, I'm hosting a Bible study.
And it was
with
just
this-
me and him with like a fire pit in the back, being like, I don't know what's going on.
Totally. And I showed up and I was like,
Those were the days.
Those were the early days.
yeah. When I pulled up, I was like, there's Gabe and there's this like really hot guy there, Jace.
What about me?
I don't know if you were there.
I was probably traveling.
yeah,
I am
You're the
guy.
travel guy. You're probably traveling, having a really deep conversation with someone on a plane.
That's me.
I love
They
it.
caught me.
Well, those were early days.
Those were
and then
early
we were
days.
like, hey, we don't know how to do this. Hudson, do you want to run the Bible study?
Yeah. But the only reason that I'm
We actually recruited you.
here.
We scouted you.
Yeah,
and then we're
exactly.
like,
is literally after that Bible study, I was like, I vibed with that guy. He prayed for a roommate, and I was like, I think I'm going to answer your prayer. The Lord put him in my life. The Lord will like give you the opportunities if you are saying, hey, this is something that I want to prioritize and commit to. I feel like so often the Lord honors that and blesses it
Bro,
tenfold.
you were a wedding videographer when I first met you. I remember that. You came over here. I remember the first Bible. I remember that Bible study, dude. That's crazy.
It was at the first one. I
At
remember.
Allen's.
At Allen's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a wedding videographer.
Yeah.
Now look at me. I run a film
Help.
festival.
There you go.
Take me back. The pay was pretty great, man.
Yeah, I know.
Oh man.
yeah, weddings pay well.
They do.
Honestly.
But I've retired. If you want to book someone for your wedding,
This guy.
Oh, why are you pointing at me, dog?
glenscreative.com.
weddings.
glenscreative.com.
Photos. I shoot like
Yeah.
photos,
Yeah.
not video. No. I really don't shoot weddings, so.
The last thing I would say about making community there is that when you're going out and about, you're going to meet a lot of different people, and some people are going to suck. That doesn't mean that everybody sucks. So
Yep.
don't let 1 or 2 or even 10 bad experiences take you from finding real connections and really awesome community. Like, honestly, finding you guys have been like a huge thing for, I think, a lot of people out here in LA, actually. This group has been a huge blessing. So
It really has.
Yeah.
It blows me away constantly. I'm just like, us.
Yeah.
Why us?
Yeah,
You know?
it's crazy.
Like, but it's such a testament to God, I think, too. You know, because like you were talking about earlier with the analogy of like being a beam of hope or being like allowing God to just live through us. It's just really crazy to see fruit of that and to see people like come in contact with not just like our immediate community, but they come in contact with all sorts of people that we know from so many different like spots in LA.
Yeah.
And they're just like, man, like you guys are different. And I'm like, well, it's not us.
It's
so.
definitely not us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so cool to be on the other side of that now and be able to like steward that and try to steward that well. and realize that the people that are coming in contact are me 6 years ago.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like they're me 6 years ago, just desperate for somebody to relate with and somebody to feel like at home with,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Sick, guys. Well, thanks for coming on. I'm stoked for the film festival. I was gonna put a film in, but not this year. But you might see me, if you go, you might see me asking some interview questions on the red carpet or something.
Yeah, you're
We'll
going to
see.
do media coverage there?
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
Might have a microphone in hand.
Love it. I love it. Yep. Fuel the Fire this year is on
August
August 2nd,
Mhm.
Friday,
Yep.
7 p.m. at Miracle Theater.
Be
Tickets
there,
on
Inglewood.
Hoopla. It'll be a blast.
Yeah, we'll link it down. We'll link it. We'll link it down below.
Sounds good.
I got one last question for you, both of you. What does it mean to you to be creative?
These are too deep for me today, bro.
Come on.
I can't do this. I think that changed for me. I think at the beginning, I just wanted to create because I wanted to create something for myself. And now I think my perspective has shifted to creating things that can bring insight or joy or entertainment to others. Kind of trying to view it through more of how God serves other people. And so as much as I like making the things I do, I'm now trying to create so that I can actually impact other people. And doing that through stuff that I have gone through, hopefully can help other people relate to some stuff, and working on a craft that gives to others rather than just trying to make something for myself. So
Yeah, I like that.
That's awesome. Were you asking what's it mean to be a creative, or what's it mean to be creative?
To be creative.
To be creative.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, which I've started realizing, it seems like to be creative is to solve problems inside some sort of boundary. That creativity isn't just always just like an abstract blah onto the wall. Often we have lots of constraints that make up what we're making, but then how do I make something new, unique, and beautiful that makes someone experience something new that they haven't before inside those boundaries, inside the money limitations, inside the page that you're painting on. That I think is creativity.
That's good. I agree. Yeah. I kind of felt that sentiment when I was setting all this up today.
Oh yeah,
Because
that's what this is. Create
I was like
something in the
turning,
box.
a living room, a couch that looked like a frat couch, into something presentable. And I was like, I'm creating right now.
Yep, totally. That's
I'm making stuff happen.
That's creative.
yeah.
Totally.
No, I like it. Yeah, solving a problem, that's huge. I think that's so big. Cool. Well, yeah, thanks guys for coming on. Key takeaways: tell stories with truth in them. Be genuine with that. Take action on that, and so many other things in your life. Find purpose in your life. Find genuine purpose. Like, what do you actually value in life? Keep showing up day by day, and pursue depth with people. I like that one personally. I love pursuing depth. I think it's so important, because at the end of the day, I don't know what's left, you know.
Yep.
Do all these things, have fun, go dance in the desert, make movies, and then, like, I don't know what's special about that unless you have like amazing people around you that you're doing it with, in my mind.
Totally.
Can't take anything with you to heaven, but you can take the people around you.
Facts.
Jesus can take them.
Yeah.
He'll take them, right? It sounds good. On the
Yeah.
quote,
No, I'll take it. Tattoo that on my forehead.
Well, thanks
Awesome.
guys.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Epic. Peace.
Bye.
We are created by God to create with a driven purpose.
Number one tip.
Just start making stuff.
How do we seek? How do we ask for wisdom?
That's such a good question.
Have fun being what God has called you to be as a creative.
Mic drop.